it means to be an American. America is freedom, and freedom is special and rare.
We, the people of this great nation.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
We, the people of this great nation.
My fellow Americans, I have a guest today. His name is Russell. He's a fellow Trump supporter. He's worked in the industry for many years in the radio industry. He's going to talk about why he supports Trump, why he's for Trump, and his backing on how he knows so much about the economy. And just give us a background of what you've done in your life. I know you just said it for my live stream, but if you can possibly repeat your background so people can go ahead and have more of an understanding.
Okay, well, first of all, I was raised by a single mother who had 3 jobs. One of her jobs, I think my favorite thing she did was she worked at a hair salon, and you know, at the time I didn't know it was more to help her, but I thought it was an honor to sweep her floors. And then one of her other jobs that she did, back in the early 80s, there were these safety commercials that people put out, and she was actually if you ever seen any of those infomercials from a long time ago, she was the tall blonde that would pretend to fall off a ladder. And
Okay.
she did a little bit of acting. So, and then, of course, raising 5 children on your own, you see a lot of, you know, things of how it is a struggle for some single mothers out there to get little things done, even around the house, you know, like retiling or whatever. So we did have a lot of, you know, men who came by the house. They were never really a stepfather figure until probably I was in 5th grade. She met a teacher who also did a little bit of stuff for central office, and he became my stepdad, I think shortly about a year after that. And I thought it was really cool is he took me out to breakfast one morning and said, "Do you mind if I marry your mother?" And I was like, "Well, I've never been sure. Go ahead." Whatever. And he was Catholic. I was raised originally Catholic, and went to a Spanish-speaking church, believe it or not, because my brother helped raise me while my mom was doing all these jobs, and his girlfriend was Hispanic, and I learned how to not only speak the language, but also how to cook some damn fine Mexican food. But enough about me. Why am I a Trump supporter? Do I agree with everything he says? No. But if you like to make money, I mean, take it from a businessman. And I'm sorry, I know that, you know, Congress is riddled with, you know, lawyers. If you think about it, everybody who ever becomes anyone, usually in the political scene, is a lawyer. And what do most people hate? Lawyers. So I never understood why there's so many lawyers in Congress. And I know a couple of lawyers that I'm like, okay, they're okay, but 90% of them would turn their backs on their own family. So, you know,
The party of lawyers is the Democratic Party. The majority of that's why they
the
feel.
Republicans have a good number of them too.
Yeah, but they're prepping the country. They're prepping the country for because literally the Democrats have more lawyers than the Republican Party by like 3 folds. So they're preparing for this whole mail-in ballot situation that they're trying to pull off, and they already got.
By the way,
huh?
Have you gotten yours from the USPS? By the way,
I requested an absentee ballot.
Well, I received this in the mail today. It says, if you plan to vote by mail, plan ahead, and you flip it over, and it says, "Dear postal customer, start today. Give yourself, the election officials, ample time to complete the process." You can check which one, and it kind of is setting you up for voting by mail. This whole voting for mail, this is like what you see in countries that are, you know, are repressed. You don't see this stuff in the great United States of America. This is weird.
It is weird. It's an attempt to try to take Donald Trump out of office by any means necessary, and that's why they're changing it. It's okay for protests to take place. It's okay for rioting and looting, but people cannot go and stand. Have you ever voted in person?
Thank you, darling.
That's all I do.
Okay, yeah. You've seen that it's kind of social distance regardless. Because when you vote in person, they kind of have them separated apart so nobody's invading your privacy while you're voting. So,
Well, the strangest thing to me is, being from South Texas for, the majority of my life,
okay.
which
Oh, okay.
Mexican Americans, it also is heavy Catholic, but they're Democrats. And it's weird. It's like, how can you be Catholic and Democrat? That just doesn't...
It goes
doesn't
against
go
everything the
together.
Democrats believe. They're pro-choice. I mean, and most religions are pro-life. I understand where you're, but I mean, the great state of Texas always votes red, except when it voted for the last time. I think it was John F. Kennedy. That they voted blue.
Which he was a different Democrat, I consider myself a different Republican. I mean, I'm originally from Texas. Now I live in Florida, both red states, both pro-gun. Never owned a gun. Do I want a gun? Not really. Do I think that people need AR-15s? I'm sorry, but I really don't. But does that mean that you should go take it from them? Absolutely not. If you want to own one, sure, but I don't want to see it, so I'm pretty much going to stay away from you. That's just the way I was raised. Don't hang around people that you don't want to be seen with or that can get you in trouble. Not saying people with an AR-15 would get me in trouble, but I don't want to be a casualty of an accident, so I'm not going to put myself in that situation. As far as these rioters go, I just think half of them don't even know what they're rioting for. Half of them don't even know what the cause is, and the whole defund the police, that just makes no sense. I have a friend who's a sheriff down in Hidalgo, Texas. He works for the sheriff's department, and he was requested to go do detail, as they call it, security detail, for a protest to defund the police. I'm like, why would they call the police to go? I mean, but whatever. It's just a whole mess, this entire thing. And I just wish people would look more into, besides, I hate Trump, so I'm voting for Biden. Well, that doesn't, you never get anywhere out of spite, do you? Do you really get anywhere out of that?
Not really. You shouldn't vote on emotion. You should be voting on what's best for your country and what's best for your family and yourself.
And a lot of people are sitting there saying, well, it's Trump's fault for global warming. Oh, really? I mean, he's been in office how long? And what about these other people?
Joe Biden, 47
years.
years.
California's been a mess for years. And there's been all types, if people do the research, if they call themselves educated, they want to call themselves liberals and everything like that, well then research how much the governors, not only now and before, have been told, clean your forest floors. Clean your forest floors. The foliage and everything that's dead down there can be sparked and it burns. But year after year after year, the dadgum state's on fire. I don't get it.
Listen, they've had worse fires in the 70s than they're having now. Apparently, climate change only focuses on California and the West Coast. As a matter of fact, Canada had less fires this year than they did last year. So does that mean climate change only focuses in the U.S., but doesn't focus on other regions? And then again, there's another question that no climate change expert can answer. What's actually good climate? How do we know? This is an old planet. Like, what do we know of what's the proper climate? I mean,
and how many times has this happened before?
California is more. 15 years ago, California was nicer than it is now, and apparently they've been working on green energy for many years, and the situation just keeps getting worse. Power lines, they're not managing their power lines. They're not managing their power lines, which is another reason, because they're so focused on their green energy. They're not managing their power lines. And we saw the outages that happened in San Jose, where thousands of people lost electricity. I mean, I've never understood why people are Democrats. I don't understand it, why people are liberals. Everybody, look, even the anarchists want less government control. Republicans stand for that. Republicans, Donald Trump actually wants the government to control less of your life, and you control more of your life. That's the whole anarchist view, that they want less government control. Well, that's what Trump is trying to do. I mean, so he deregulates everything. Yet, the Democrats are all about regulation, except for when it comes for voting.
And hold on. And something that probably needs to be said on that, the Democrats are the ones that deregulated media. And that's why the media is controlled by, 3 or 4 families as far as television and networking goes. But as far as radio goes, it used to be, I worked for mom and pops up and down Texas, and it was great until you started getting bought by these big Democratic companies. And this is a true story. Intravision Radio is run by the biggest Democrats, and they would give free advertising to Hillary when she would come down as part of her political things. And moreover, they would tell you to vote Democrat because you're Latino. And it's like, what? And they would set up bus systems with hospitals and people, you could get a free ride to the polls. There's all kind of, they call them politicos down in the Rio Grande Valley that actually get paid under the table by some local officials so you can go vote in precincts for like commissioners and stuff like that. It is so corrupt, the whole system, but that's the dadgum Democrats doing that. You don't see Republicans going and saying, hey, what's your dead grandma's Social Security number? I mean, there's some very spiteful people out there.
I agree, and I think that I saw recent footage of a postal employee actually dumping ballots into the trash. Of course, she was arrested because she got caught on camera. But what if she would not have gotten caught on camera?
Well, how many haven't been caught on camera?
That's a good question. I mean,
my brother worked for the Postal Service, and he literally went to work. He had a paycheck. He ran through some tough times. He was on all kinds of medication, because when you're on medication, you have to have a medication that helps with the adverse effects of the first medication, and then another medication to help with the adverse of the effects of the other adverse. On down the line, he was like on 8 medications. Worked for the post office. He'd drive to work in Dallas-Fort Worth and decide, I don't really feel like going to work. Got into some financial mess. My older brother and I both flew up there to have a sit down with him, and we discovered that one of his paychecks was literally 32 cents. We were like, how long has this been going on? He's like, about 5 weeks. And then we're like, you haven't been fired? It is so hard to get fired from a union with the United States Postal Service. So as much as those people,
my dad worked for them for 35 years.
Yeah, it's so hard to get fired from. So is she really fired for dumping those ballots? I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. I just think we're living right now in times that are chaotic. I feel like I don't feel like any unity is going to come, whether Biden wins or Trump wins. The left is going to continue trying to promote their left-wing agenda. And, I mean, it's just ridiculous. Did you see what Biden did in Kissimmee, Florida? That he walked in there. Despacito. Does he realize? He didn't even realize that means slow, which goes with the whole thing that everybody calls him Slow Joe. He doesn't. And it's so typical of. It's almost like they're mocking Hispanics. Like they think that Hispanics are so stupid that because he's playing a Spanish song, he cares about the Spanish community, the Latino community. It's ridiculous. It's the same thing Hillary did with the barbecue sauce. Apparently, they did not realize the backlash, or they didn't learn from their experiences from the backlash that Hillary got with the whole barbecue sauce thing. that they didn't give him the right information. I mean, he talks about climate change and then he jumps on board a fucking private jet. And then he writes Wheels Up, which we know it's not him who's writing this. I mean, he can't keep a sentence together. Nevertheless, is he going to be able to tweet his own stuff? So, I mean, we know Trump tweets his own stuff. You can tell that's definitely Trump language.
Yeah, and unfortunately, whether you love him or you hate him, he's not a politician, and he's not polished, and he doesn't have all these people around him that are saying, hey, don't do that, because he actually has a trimmed down cabinet. He has a trimmed down, and he surrounded himself with family, and a lot of people had a problem with that, but he trusts these people, and they let him be him. I remember Ronald Reagan. When Ronald Reagan would tell you in the middle of a press conference, oh, shut the hell up, and people would be like, oh, that's the president. We have a lot of, candy asses now that are just so offended by anything. And unfortunately, I have a 22-year-old daughter who believes everything on social media. So if it's on social media, it's true, because no one filters that. But I guarantee you, if you go through some of my Facebook things, anytime something is pro-Trump, it is taken off. It's so crazy. But boy, we can just flood the airways with Biden. Yahoo must be owned by the Clintons, because it is always good news about the Clintons, always good news about the Democratic Party, and Trump is a loser. I hate it.
I mean, look, this is a president. I don't think any president has dealt with what he's dealt with in their presidency. I mean, Ronald Reagan was close to it. He had an assassination attempt on him. John F. Kennedy was actually assassinated. There has been circumstances that have been a little bit worse, but I mean, this guy's been beaten and abused, and I can't believe
they say that he's had 24 attempts on his life. I don't know if there's any way to verify that, and I sure as heck wouldn't throw it out there, but unless people would go do their own research. But I read that from some former security personnel that are familiar with his situation, and 24 attempts. I mean, that might be. He sure does run out of planes and doesn't really care if he's surrounded by people.
That's more than Fidel Castro. I mean, it's. I find this all to be crazy, ridiculous. This man had more to lose becoming president than what he had to gain. And people just don't realize that. All these presidents come out of office and they're richer than when they came in. This man's actually going to come out of office and probably have less money than what he did when he came in. He had a great life. He said it numerous times. He's had an amazing life. Everybody loved him. Nobody called him a racist when he was Trump, just Donald Trump. He was in everybody's rap songs. He won an award with Rosa Parks and Muhammad Ali for all the work that he's done for the black communities prior to becoming president. And everybody loved him. Al Sharpton loved him, Jesse Jackson. Now all of them hate him. As a matter of fact, it was kind of ironic that I actually saw that Al Sharpton had to backtrack the whole defunding of the police, because I guess he started realizing that it's affecting his constituents, his people, and he had to backtrack, and it actually left the guy on CNN a little bit like, oh shit, like what is he saying here? Like he was like disagreeing. He says that the violence has increased and it could have possibly been a bad choice, in his own words.
And since you're kind of getting into public figures and everything, here's my biggest problem. Is, this is the land of America. People come here. My wife came from Mexico. She became a citizen in 2009. And I cried like a baby that day because I was so proud. And I went to the ceremony, and there was like 400 people in the auditorium. And they're from Guatemala, Honduras. They're from Mexico. They're from Cuba. They're from all around the world. It was an amazing experience. But here's my problem. I work in an office. Not working right now, but in this particular office, I have a lady that she's from Canada, and she's like, I have citizenship both in Canada and here, but she goes, I'm going to vote for Biden, because we in Canada, we're socialist, and we kind of don't want America to succeed. And I'm like, really? Is that really why you would just vote so we would go down? She goes, yeah, and once it goes down, I'm just going to go back to Canada anyway, because our money is better when your economy's bad. I'm like, I just don't understand why people that don't want to be here or have bad things to say, if they're not from here, then they should just go.
They don't go because they're taking advantage of the system. They're making money here until the money. She said it exactly. She's making money now. She's enjoying the fruits of our great economy, and when it crashes, she flees. And that's one of the reasons that illegal immigration is also a big issue. A lot of the people that work under the radar, they're sending money. Have you seen the price on how much it costs to send money from Mexico to the United States, but how much it costs from the United States to Mexico, to Western Union?
Well,
It's ridiculous.
My wife, that's not a fair assessment, because my wife is from Mexico, so I know exactly. And a lot of people would sit there and say, well, don't you want like her family and everything? Well, here's the thing that people don't understand. Not every Mexican wants to come to America. the people in America sit there and say, oh, the Mexicans are coming. They're going to come take our job. Really? Let me tell you something. Every time I'm on a corner in South Texas, or whether I'm in Hialeah, or if I'm in West Palm Beach, you know the people that are on the corners begging for money? White people.
Yep.
White people. You know who's working? The Latinos. They're working.
I agree with you on that. I think
people in America.
Trump has been teasing with something, and he teased it yesterday again with that interview. He says he's got something planned about the immigration issue. Bet you he's going to create some sort of amnesty or something. He's going to do something where he's going to legalize a bunch of people in this country. Bet you he's going to do something for the immigration, for the illegal immigrants that are in this country.
And I'm all for that. You know,
I'm all for that. As long as they don't have a criminal record that's violent, as long as they don't have anything that they've done like rapists and stuff, send them back, obviously. But I mean, if they've been good and they've been only working in this country and they've come to this country, I mean, look, I have a landscaping guy in Miami that his kids are born here in the U.S. That guy makes a ton of cash. Why wouldn't we want to make him legal? He'd be paying taxes on the money he makes.
Right.
He'd be able to buy a home. He'd be able to do things instead of renting. He'd be able to put into the economy.
Right.
I mean, you know, so that's something that we agree on, and that's not really a Republican view, to be honest with you. That's actually not a very Republican view, but I do believe that we need to do something about the ones that are in here already. We do need to have control of who comes in. But we also need to take care of the ones that have already been here. There's a lot of people that have been here for years and years and years, and I mean they haven't done anything wrong. They've worked their entire lives in this country, and they know more about the U.S. than they do of Mexico, and they're still not legal.
And if you've ever, when I had a radio show in Texas, we used to play "Are You Smart Enough to Be a Citizen?" Because we would get. The citizen test, because like I said, my wife went through it, my mother-in-law went through it, and I helped both of them study for it, and I was like, some of the questions on there is like, hell, I don't know. I mean, it's 100-question test, and I guarantee you 90% of the people listening right now, and probably 90% of the millennials out there, no way would they pass this test. No way. There's no way, because it's got questions on there like, name the original 13 colonies. You ask my 22-year-old daughter that, they didn't teach her in school, because they teach her things to pass a test now. They don't teach her history. They teach her things to pass a test. It's just the way we've turned our whole system into this, hey, what are we now, 18th in the world in education?
That's horrible.
No, it's not good.
That's horrible. It's horrible. But yeah, man, hey, it was a pleasure having you on my show. Thank you so much. I appreciate having a fellow Trump supporter that has an open mind, that is not closed-minded and has different views. That shows people in America that not all Trump supporters just think the same way. We have different views. We're not all against having immigrants coming into this country. We're not racist. We're not anything. We just want the best for our country. That's it. It's very simple. We want America to stay great, and we want opportunity for everybody. At least I do. Thank you, Russell, so much for being a part of my show today. I greatly appreciate it. Love you, my brother.
Back at you.